This is Gene Montrastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg and Brooklyn. This is episode 279, originally aired July 19th, 2017. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. In today's podcast, we're going to talk about a really common mistake people make when they are tapping for issues from the past, where they think they're tapping on the right thing, but they're not. And because they're not tapping on the right part of the issue, relief isn't going to happen. And no matter how long they work, they're not going to get to a place of success. So a real simple conversation and process for that. But before we jump into that, on Monday, July 31st, I am going to be having a little meetup. And if you are in London or anywhere near London, I would love to see you. We are going to meet at the Mulberry Bush, a very cute name, for a bar that is on the South Bank. It is about 2 blocks from the National Theater. So it's a block away from the water and a couple of blocks down. I will be there from 6:30 to 8:30 just hanging out. If you want to come by, say hi, chat. I've already heard from a number of people when I put the notice up to the newsletter who are going to be showing up. Real informal, hang out, ask anything you want. It will be a good time. If you are going to come, please let me know. Or even if you're thinking of coming, not because I need a RSVP for that, but in case something changes and I want to communicate with you, just drop me a note, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. That's Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. Let me know you're thinking of coming, and I will make sure I keep you in the loop. The other thing is a big shout out to all the folks who are supporting the Tapping Q&A podcast. I appreciate your continued support. It is helping us to upgrade the podcast in a number of cool ways, and more of those changes are coming soon. So today's podcast actually was rooted in a conversation that I was having with a client on Monday night. And after we did the work, I asked her if it was okay if I shared in vague details what had happened. So let's just call her Carrie to make it simple. So we were tapping on an issue from many, many decades ago. This was from when Carrie was a child. And it was some family issues around the way that she had been treated by her parents. And as we were tapping on the issue, all of a sudden, she's just like, I'm just so angry. I'm so angry. I'm so angry. But as I replay the memory, I wasn't angry as a child. And what she was recognizing, and this is something that happens to all of us, is we have the experience in the moment whenever something is happening. And we have the experience after the fact, which is the emotional response about how we interpreted the thing that happened in the past. And it's even possible for us, as we have new information given to us after the fact, that our emotion can change even more. So in this circumstance, this thing happened in the past, and the anger was her looking at it as an adult looking backwards. Now, there are times where we can be angry in the moment and angry after the fact, and those line up. Here is a practical example of how it doesn't always line up. Years and years ago, in a pre-cell phone era, I was traveling in Spain. And spur of the moment, I decided to leave Granada. I was heading for Valencia. I didn't pay attention to bus schedules. I missed a bus by about 15 minutes, which cost me 9.5 hours for the next bus, which then put me into Valencia at 2 o'clock in the morning. Because the decision to head to Valencia was spur of the moment, I didn't have any reservations. So I got there at 2 o'clock in the morning, in a city I'd never been to before, in a country where I barely spoke the language, very, very functional tourist Spanish. I'd been studying the Spanish language for the 4 weeks prior, so it was probably the best my Spanish ever was, but it still wasn't great. And so now I need to find a place to stay in the middle of the night without looking like a lost tourist who's trying to find a place to stay in the middle of the night, because I would immediately have been a mark. So in the middle of the night, I was worried. I found a place to stay. Everything worked out great. I slept in. I woke up. And as I was laying in bed thinking about the events of the night before, I started to think about how stupid I was. And I was really beating myself up because I know better. It wasn't like I hadn't traveled internationally before. I know that that was going to be a bad circumstance to be in, and I still found my way there because of my lack of planning, and I wasn't being very thoughtful about what was happening. So in the moment I was scared, after the fact I was frustrated and disappointed. So to tap on something like that, I couldn't claim the feeling of being scared because I was no longer in danger. Like, even as I think back to it now, I have a sense of what it was like to be afraid, but I'm not, because I know I'm safe. So the emotion that I needed to be tapping on was the frustration or my interpretation of the moment. And so the place that this comes up most is when we are doing something like tapping with the movie technique. In the movie technique, what you do is you start playing on a movie screen or in your mind this idea of a moment that happened in the past. And as the moment unfolds, the instant you bump into an emotional response, you stop and you tap on that moment. You go back to the beginning of the movie and you start replaying it again. It's a very gentle way to tap for something in the past. But if I were to do the movie technique for me wandering around the streets of Spain, at no point would I have ever gotten to frustration. At no point would I have ever gotten to disappointment in myself. And so make it hard for us to navigate in that way. So back to my client, Carrie, who I was chatting with on Monday evening. So Carrie was in a circumstance where all of a sudden, all of this anger that was showing up had nothing to do with what she experienced in that moment, but instead, as an adult, looking back on the way that she had been treated by people who were supposed to be taking care of her, that made her really, really angry. Because those are the people who should have been protecting her. Those are the people who should have been caring for her. And instead, they were doing just the opposite and putting her in a position where she not only wasn't being cared for, she was being put in harm's way. So when we're tapping on moments from the past and we're tapping on issues from the past, I think the movie technique is a great thing for us to do, to be able to go through and pick off the emotional responses. But that's not enough. What we also need to do is we need to tune in and ask the question, how do I feel about the fact that that actually happened? So we're asking ourselves, what's my emotional response that that thing in the past is true and it came to pass? Who am I frustrated with? Who am I angry at? What am I afraid of now? Because sometimes we'll be in a situation like that where there is no fear in the moment, but because the bad thing happened to us, there is now a part of us that's afraid that it's going to happen again in the future because it happened before. And so in that moment, there was no fear. Now, thinking about the fact it happened, there is. So we ask ourselves, how do I feel about what had happened? And how do I feel about the lessons that I've learned because that happened? And what this is going to do is this is going to give you another entry point into emotions that you can tap for and clear, because we are now being able to movie technique, deal with what happened in the past, and present tense asking these questions about how it impacted us to clear what showed up new in the moment. And what this does is it gives us the ability to fully release everything that's associated with that past memory, which is going to allow us to move forward in a healthier way. So half of the issue isn't hanging around. Because if we just do the movie technique and there is this new stuff, then we're never, ever, ever going to find our way to those emotions. So just something that is food for thought when you're tapping for yourself. Ask yourself that question about how do I feel about it today? Jot some notes, tap on those things, and it'll move you forward. I would love to hear your experience with trying this out and how this has impacted you and your tapping as you're going after an old issue, particularly if you're in a circumstance where there's an old issue that you just haven't been able to clear no matter how much you've tried. This might be the window to climb in through that'll give you a new approach to that issue that will provide more relief. If you know someone who could use the information that we shared today, you know, a fellow tapper or a tapping practitioner who might be improved by having this in their arsenal, please be in their ambassador, pass it along, let them know. If you haven't done so in a while, dip into the Tapping Q&A podcast archives. We're over 325 podcasts just sitting there between full episodes, partial episodes, tap along audios. There's over 175 hours of content that is just free of charge waiting for you. Obviously, you don't have to go back and listen to all of it. That's a lot of audio to consume. But if you scroll down through the list or you hit the search function, see what's there. If there is a bright mind that you want to hear talking about change, particularly a tapper, we've probably interviewed them in the past. If there's a subject that you need some help on, we have a great library of stuff there. And if you have topic that isn't in there, let me know. I'm always looking for new topics. Some of my favorite podcasts have been recommendations by people just like you. Simply drop me a note at Gene, Gene, at tappingqna.com, or up at the top, just click on the contact link and you can either leave me a voice message or you can type a message for me right there. I love hearing from listeners just like you. If you are in the UK, please see me in London. I also didn't mention at the beginning of the show, I'm going to be wandering around Wales over the course of the weekend, the 28th, 29th, and 30th. If you are in Wales or Liverpool or Manchester or Chester, anywhere close to the border of northern Wales, please let me know. We might do something over the weekend that's informal as well. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyright Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.